In Catawba County, the Appalachian Trail is right in our backyard, and it has beckoned two local hikers in two very different ways. George Place uses the AT as a place for personal meditative journeys, venturing out on solo 10 to 12-day hikes on a near-annual basis. For Lori Wray, the AT is something to conquer in its entirety, which she has been doing segment by segment for the past 3 years. Listen in as host Hal Row digs into their unique and compelling AT stories on this special edition of Making Living Better.
Good morning. Welcome back to First Talk with Hal Row on WHKY Talk Radio for the Greater Hickory Metro. We'll be talking about one of my favorite subjects this morning, the Appalachian Trail. And we got somebody we know is no stranger to the First Talk studios, Dr. George Place, of course, with the North Carolina Cooperative Extension. Nice to see you, sir.
Always good to see you, Hal.
And we'll talk a little bit about your time on and with the Appalachian Trail. And also this morning we'll talk with Lori Wray, Senior Real Estate Appraiser with the Catawba County Tax Office. Nice to see you, ma'am.
Nice to see you.
And also some time on the Appalachian Trail as well. So we'll talk about that. Somewhere in here we've got some information on the Conservancy, the Appalachian Trail Conservancy, because they've been in and talked with us about keeping the Appalachian Trail up and active and nice. But let's start with, now are you originally from the area, Ms. Wray?
I grew up around the Kannapolis area and then moved here in 1988.
Okay, very good. And you're a Catawba County Tax Office Senior Real Estate Appraiser. Mm-hmm. So I kind of asked jokingly, before we came on there, so you'll come out and appraise my house? You said, maybe. So tell me about your job. Tell me what you do.
Basically what we do is assess properties in Catawba County. We have a reevaluation every 4 years. So then we look at the market to see what properties are selling for at that time, and that's how we assign your tax value.
Now, do you actually, a lot of this, I guess, is done in the office, and you take a look at as what real estate agents would call comps. Is that right?
That's correct.
And comparing what's going on in neighborhoods. But you actually get out and actually take a look at houses and actually do that real estate that way? You check in the crawl space and the attic and all that kind of stuff?
Well, we don't go inside. Most of our information is gathered externally, unless the taxpayer specifically asks us to come inside.
Right.
So we do drive-bys, we look at condition, and then if something sells, we've got access maybe to MLS to see what they've talked about the house and go from there.
Do you ever hire home inspection groups to go in and say, hey, we had a taxpayer interested in their property, they don't think this is right? Do you hire those folks who actually go out and do an actual appraisal of the home?
No, we don't, but some taxpayers will bring in appraisals they've had done independently.
Okay, so they can bring them in and say, hey, I got this tax bill. This is not looking right to me. This is what my appraisal says, and you'll work with them.
Exactly.
Okay.
We'll look at all the information. We want to make sure our information is correct.
Very good. So that's what you do Monday through Friday, I guess pretty much 9 to 5.
Yes.
And then you enjoy some time out and about and hiking and on the Appalachian Trail. Is that right?
That's correct.
How'd you get started hiking?
About 20 plus years ago, there was
really?
a group that met on Wednesdays and hiked. And at that time,
and that's in our area, right?
That's exactly right. And at that time, I was a fee appraiser, so I had my own business and was able to take time myself and do these hikes on Wednesday when they did it.
I bet you I know some of the people in that group, but go ahead. Yeah.
And they're very well known, especially one of them. So as we did that, sometimes we would be on the Appalachian Trail doing some of these hikes. We'd see mountain to sea trails, so it became of interest about, what all that was about, and I started reading more about it, but enjoyed hiking with those people.
Now, when did you start? You didn't do this as a child, Girl Scout, anything like that. This is something you found a little bit later on in life, right?
Exactly.
And you learn so much from people that you hang out with about boots, about packs, about what you need to carry with you and what you don't need to carry with you. And you're very fortunate because you kind of started off with a great group of folks who are doing Wednesday hikes, so you get to hear all this information and hear these conversations kind of from the get-go, so you're learning a little bit as you move ahead.
I am, but I think you learn the most when you're out there doing it yourself with a backpack. That's a little different than just going out for day hikes with your pack. So, adding the pack in there is a different component that you really need to learn a lot about. Okay,
so when did you go from your Wednesday hikes to actually getting the pack, the bag, the whole deal, because that's an investment, let's face it. So you got to do that.
Right.
And you went out on your first hike. Tell us about, do you remember? I know you remember
Yes.
that. I can tell you right now that's the question I'm going to ask that you remember.
Well, I'd always wanted to do it, but like I said, I think hiking is not hard or backpacking. It's finding somebody to do it with you.
Right.
Solo is not something that I wanted to do.
It's not safe.
Well,
for anybody. I mean, and I'm not talking about characters out on the trail. We'll maybe talk a little bit about that. Mm-hmm. But if you fall and slip and hurt your ankle and you're there, you got to wait until somebody comes by. Exactly. And that's not really a good plan. So, yeah.
So I was with a coworker, and he was talking about he was going to try and do a section at Easter.
A section of the Appalachian Trail.
Exactly. So I dialed in on that, and I said, I talked to him about it, and I said, I'd like to come with you. So I invited myself, more or less.
Sure.
So he let me go. We also reached out. There's a hiking club that I belong to here in Catawba Valley.
Right.
And see if anybody else was interested in joining us. So there was another lady that she had always wanted to do it herself.
Right.
So she came with us that time. But I didn't tell them that was my first backpacking. I've hiked and hiked, but backpacking, like I said, adds a different component. So I didn't tell them that because I thought, well, they're not going to let me go.
Right.
So anyway, we did a section backwards or southbound from Neal's Gap down to Springer.
Where's that?
Down in Georgia.
Okay.
So that's the first section that you start out with. Everybody starts at Springer, or the majority of them do, and do a northbound hike.
Really good. Okay, so that's Springer's where you start the Appalachian Trail. Mm-hmm. Generally, you hike with the seasons, and it used to be, because a lot of people are doing it different ways now. That's what I found out. Some people are doing the middle at first, and then they're going north, and then they're coming south to beat a lot of the traffic on the trail. And Dr. George Place is over here nodding and smiling, saying, yeah. So
they're encouraging you to flip-flop because Georgia is really getting beaten down. So many people start there.
Did not know that.
Yeah.
Okay. So you invited yourself along, okay, to this,
I made it.
to this other guys. Now, tell me about that. Did you go online? Did you go to a store? Where'd you get your equipment?
I started researching some.
Right.
There's a place called Frugal Backpacker up in Asheville.
Really?
There was a gentleman there who had through-hiked it.
See, a short, pleasant day trip right up to Asheville, right here from here in Catawba County. You were able to go up to Asheville.
I said, this is what I'm going to do. And I said, help me get equipped.
Right.
So he did that, and off I went. So.
And you had done some research. So you were like, this is the direction I'm moving in. This is kind of what I need and what I want to do.
I said, these are how many days I'll probably be out at a time, because I knew I was going to have to section hike it. So he said, you'll need this, you'll need that. And you
already knew some of it, right? Was it very exciting? Was it everything that you thought it would be? Did you just love it?
Well, once again, we get back to pack weight. I had too much weight.
Right.
So that was a learning experience on that one. So I've narrowed it down a lot since then. But I switched out my tent. We hiked,
sure.
Well, we hiked in a thunderstorm.
Oh, so there you go.
So my first backpacking was mostly in the rain.
Hi, I'm Jared Clark. I'm a middle school teacher, a baseball coach, and a craft beer enthusiast. My wife and I liken Hickory to a champion welterweight boxer. When you think about boxing, normally someone like Muhammad Ali, a heavyweight, comes to mind. Hickory might not be quite that big, but if you start digging under the surface, it definitely packs quite a punch, maybe like a Floyd Mayweather. There's a lot more here than people may expect when they take their first glance. This is where we hope to raise our family, because Catawba County is making living better for us. You can learn more about my Catawba County at makinglivingbetter.com.
We're enjoying Tales from the Appalachian Trail this morning with a couple of our featured Catawbans. This actually is kind of a special edition. I guess it's kind of like the Hallmark movie, that's the special edition that we have of our featured Catawbans and Making Living Better in Catawba County. Dr. George Place joins us this morning, Catawba County Cooperative Extension. And we always get great comments from you when you come in and bring a guest on your quarterly shows about what's happening with Cooperative Extension. Yeah. So we really enjoy you coming on the air with us and bringing great guests. But this morning we're here to talk about your experience with the Appalachian Trail. Now, tell us a little bit about how you got involved with hiking. If I'm not mistaken, you probably did a lot of hiking at one point in your life. Is that correct?
I did. So in my early 20s, I think when I was 21, I moved to New Mexico. And just following a different path in life, and I started hiking quite a bit. And
beautiful area out there for hiking, from what I understand.
I lived in the Santa Fe area.
State and national parks out there are just something extra special.
Oh, yeah. A lot of times folks will think of the desert, but, there's peaks up to 13,000 plus in New Mexico because you're in that southern Rocky Mountain area. And so I just decided, hey, I'm going to go for a backpack, and I had no idea how to do it. I did all the wrong things. I had on new boots, Hal.
There you go. Blister City, and you can't do anything about it.
No, jeans and just
cotton kills.
Who knows how heavy my pack was, but I'm going to bet it was 45 pounds. It was, crazy.
But you were loving it. You were digging it.
I loved it. But somebody had dropped me off at the Santa Fe ski basin, so I had to make it to a destination. There was no backtracking, and ran into all kinds of good challenges. Long story short, I ended up having to cut the trip short and hitchhike out because My feet were
right, just in that bad a shape,
a little bloody from new boots, But like Lori says, you make the mistakes, and that's how you learn,
Right.
and you internalize it. Nowadays, you can get all that information online. And,
right.
A smarter person would probably go on a small backpack trip first and slowly ease in and enjoy it.
Well, now there's a book, Walk in the Woods. Bill Bryson became a movie.
Oh, yeah.
And basically that guy, big guy, smoker, he got on with new boots. Wait a minute, it did not do very well for him either. So now when did you actually say, okay, this is fun, I enjoy this, and I want to get a pack and I want to do it right? You really started to do the research.
I kept going. I mean, it was such an amazing experience on that first trip, for example, stumbling upon a herd of elk by myself with a herd of elk just looking at me, or coming up on a mountain lake that you weren't expecting. These are types of experiences that if you've never done that before, there aren't words to describe it, and so you get hooked on that.
And Lori Wray's nodding. Yeah.
Yeah, you get hooked on that, and of course it's nice to have friends. So every year I'll go with buddies, but what is been, quite frankly, life-changing for me is I take a long solo trip every year.
On the Appalachian Trail?
I do it on the Appalachian Trail because it's just so easy to not have to worry about navigation. The trail is so well marked. Right. I don't carry maps. And I'll revisit sections I've already done, and it's just a matter of just getting out amongst trees and really feeling connected. I like to forage. There's a lot of great things to forage in the August season.
So you just eat stuff you find along the trail?
I take some food with me.
That's what foraging is.
Yes,
right?
yeah.
Okay.
So for example,
me, not a forager, so I got to get a definition of what you're talking about.
On my last
trip, you got berries and roots and all kinds of stuff.
Berries are out there, definitely. Yep, both blueberry and blackberry were in spots, but what was most plentiful were what we would call gourmet mushrooms. So chanterelles were all over the place. I ate chanterelles for lunch and dinner every day. You'd find a big chicken of the woods mushroom, and you just can't take it all. It's so much, and so this is protein that's not running away from you in the woods. And
chicken of the woods.
Chicken of the woods, and it is, I'm telling you, it is delicious. You can shred this mushroom, and a lot of times what I'll have is a bag of dehydrated black beans that I've already cooked in a crock pot. So I'll make them kind of really cooked down, and then I can rehydrate that with chanterelles or other things. You find all kinds of greens on the trail, all kinds of herbs, and you can make really nice meals.
I bet you people on the trail are really glad to see you. If they're hungry, they've been eating freeze-dried food or MREs, and all of a sudden they see Dr. George Place on the trail. They're like, this guy knew how to. So, but that's stuff you learned.
That is, yeah. I took a course. I didn't just start doing that. Yes,
I took a course
for mushroom foraging. I recommend to folks take a course.
Sure, you don't want to get there and have a bad mushroom experience.
You got it. That's right. There's way more edible mushrooms than there are poisonous, but you got to know your deadly poisonous mushrooms.
Deadly poisonous mushrooms.
Yeah, there's about 5 in our area that you just want to know. And
now, unlike Ms. Wray, you do it solo. She talked about hiking with somebody and finding somebody and asking herself along, and then it became this little group. You like to get out there by yourself, put the pack on, and go.
Yes. Yeah.
So tell me about that. What's special about that?
Well, how many times do you get a day where you don't talk to somebody?
Right. And
how many times do you get a day where your whole focus of the day is walking and breathing and returning to your breath? And what I get from it specifically is my mind wants to drift back in the past or drift forward in the future, and you continually, it's just like walking on the trail, you continually bring your mind back to the trail of
to the moment.
Now, to the moment.
Right.
And it's a real practice. And so an extended period of time, I get presence power, I guess. When I come back from a trip like that, it's so much easier for me to be present.
Wow, that's really, really strong. So just from, sometimes we think about the trail as just sightseeing and just doing it and getting out there and walking, the physical aspects of it, or just being out in the environment, but actually being able to focus and to bring it into the net. Did you discover that on the trail, or did you seek that when you went to the trail? Was that something that you had heard about and said, that sounds really good, or was it something that happened to you when you were on the trail that you were able to just find that you were in the present and in the moment, and that was a discovery?
Yeah, that's that's a deep question. I think just being outside, one of the great things is, one of the things we suffer from modern life is there's so many decisions to make, so many choices to make, and we can almost be overrun by decisions and choices. When
in
you're on
a minute. In
a
1
minute.
Yeah.
When you're on a backpack trip, you know where you're going. You know what your meal is. There really aren't a lot of decisions to make.
Right.
It's laid out before you.
But you have the freedom. You have the freedom that you're on there to be in that moment and to
Absolutely.
do that. Because I'm thinking also in prison. I mean, I could tell you stories about guys who are in prison and they don't have any decisions to make. They know what they're going to wear. They know their food's going to be, slid to them, slided, whatever the word is. But then they know that's their meal. They know they don't have it, but they don't have that opportunity to be in the moment like you do when you're outside.
Absolutely. There is a thing in Japan called forest bathing. They've spent millions of dollars really researching why is this beneficial? Why do all the stress hormones, cortisol levels, blood pressure, all these things come down when you're just out in the woods? And we're not talking about exercise in the woods, just being out in the woods.
Just being in the woods.
And what we're realizing is there are plants that are releasing molecules that we are inhaling and are communicating to our body. And
that you're where you should be. You're a human being. You should be in the woods. You should be inhaling. This is part of who you are.
EPA estimates that we spend 93% of our time inside.
Wow.
87% inside structures, 6% inside vehicles. And so when all of a sudden you're outside 24 hours a day for a period of time, you feel the difference.
That's very interesting, very cool. How long will you hike when you do your individual hikes? You go for a week, you go for 2 weeks? Whatever you can get?
10 days is a good mix. It's hard on my wife, and I miss my wife. It's hard on me as well. I miss loved ones. I turn my cell phone off. To be fair, I do turn it on to text her and say, I'm still alive.
Yeah.
That's really good. Everything's good.
Right.
She greatly appreciates that, and so she supports me when I do those trips. But
and how nice to be able to do that, because there was a time when we couldn't.
Hi, I'm Angela Peisel. I'm an author, volunteer, and mom of 4. We decided to settle down in Catawba County 20 years ago. Why? The easy answer is it looked like a good place to raise a family. It's beautiful, and I love the different seasons. The reason we stayed? This community is a great place to develop close relationships with people. People in Catawba County care about making living better for each other. Learn more about My Catawba County at makinglivingbetter.com.
A couple of featured Catawbans this morning. Lori Wray, Senior Real Estate Appraiser at Catawba County Tax Office. And, of course, Dr. George Place with North Carolina Cooperative Extension. We're talking about Tales from the Trail, the Appalachian Trail and out hiking. Lori Wray, we were just talking with Dr. George Place, and he was talking about the benefits that he receives, maybe on a spiritual level, for lack of a better, I guess it is spiritual, for the things that he benefits from on the trail. Tell me what is attractive about the trail for you. And is it that time of way? Is it that time in the woods and just kind of breathing that air? Tell me what's beneficial or what you like about the hiking and about the trail.
I think it is. I think you reconnect with who you are. It's also you're challenging yourself. You've got this ahead of you. Can I do it? So that I think that's proving to me that I can do things. I think it's. I think that's part of it. And like I said, I think you do kind of reconnect with yourself. I do hike with somebody, but a lot of times we may not hike together.
Yeah, I was reading that in the fine show prep that I've been given, that sometimes the other person, I guess, will either stay a little bit back or you'll move a little bit ahead, and that you just got that time for yourself.
But you do know at the end of the day, we've told each other where we're going to meet,
right,
or we meet up along different places, different shelters or whatever, but in the end, we're going to get back together. But, yeah, I may be hiking ahead of them, but you are by yourself. So a lot of times we still, even though we're together, we don't talk.
Tell me about the equipment that you take on the trail with you. Do you have like a walking stick? Your boots are very important. Your pack is very important.
Right.
But we've talked a little bit about that. The pack and the boots, probably the most important things, right?
Exactly.
Would you say?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. I have 2 trekking poles that I take that they say your arms should be as tight as your legs by the time you finish.
Yes. Yeah. I love that. The trekking poles will save your knees.
Really?
For your listeners that have knee issues, get your upper body involved with trekking poles.
And these are the things that I see, the walking sticks, but you use these so your arms and legs, get the whole body involved.
Right. The boots, like you said, are important. The first time I went out, I had actual hiking boots, which I hiked in the rain, so they got very heavy. They didn't dry out. So, again, I went back after that trip. I switched over to trail shoes.
Okay.
They're lighter. They dry out quicker if I'm in the rain again, so that's been a big help. And as you see people hike, you'll see them in all sorts of shoes, but I think a lot of people people maybe have gone more to the trail shoes.
Right. Yeah, I agree. You know, boots are heavy, and if you think about that long lever of a leg, just adding a half a pound to the end of that lever is a ton of work.
Now, I don't know this, but y'all tell me, from what I understand, like in New Hampshire and some of the areas up there, that you have some very rocky trails, and boots are kind of the order of the day. Is that right, or am I incorrect?
I did New Hampshire in August. I did the presidential, and I used my trail shoes. But
trail shoes.
Just like I've done with the rest of the trail.
Right.
And it is kind of a rock scramble. That's more what you call it than hiking or backpacking. But
right. Rock scramble. Did not know nothing. This is good. I'm learning a lot of terminology here.
And I talked to somebody once again, another through hiker, and they said that this was worse than Pennsylvania because that's what you hear a lot about. Pennsylvania is nothing but rocks. Yeah. So. But like I said, I think the trail shoes were fine, and then you get back to pack weight, only the essentials.
Now, when you have a hot meal on the Appalachian Trail, we're not doing like when we were young and pulling into the Holiday Inn or the Howard Johnson's getting a clam roll. If you want a hot meal, you have to have a camp stove, and that means you have to have fuel, and that means that you're carrying that with you. Am I correct? Both of you look at me like maybe not, Hal.
I don't do that. I don't carry a stove.
Do you not?
No.
Even just a little. No. Okay.
No, I just pack weight.
Right.
I'm lazy as far as in the evening. Sometimes, like you said, you are tired.
Right.
So I'll do mashed potatoes, but I'll put cold water in them. I'll do ramen noodles. Maybe start at lunch, put the water in them. They're rehydrated.
But you don't carry a stove. How about you, Dr.
Lori's hardcore. I carry a stove. I love a hot meal, and I love hot coffee. But that's what a lot of the thru hikers will do. They eliminate the stove, and it's true. You just unburdened yourself not only with stove weight but fuel weight.
Fuel weight. They say I've heard that. You're talking about a couple pounds, right? Easy.
Yeah, you're just not worried about it. So I mean, I see the value of doing that, but I still haven't dipped my toe in that water. So
well, it could be raining. You know, where you're going to fix your food if you're relying on heating something that night. So, and I'm fine. And I find that I need to eat more, but I find I'm not as hungry hiking.
Right.
So at the end of
that is true. Yeah, it's weird. You would think you would be starving, and I don't eat lunch. I'll eat a reasonable breakfast, but after I've done some miles, and then I'll just kind of have a few handfuls of almonds or something as I'm going down the trail. Maybe I might pull off if I found some good things to eat.
Right.
Have like a soup or something. The one thing for me is I'll have foot issues, especially in a summer hike. If I don't stop and aerate my feet, I go on steps. So I use like a step tracker to keep myself straight every 5,000 steps. My rule is I've got to stop and take my shoes off for 10 minutes, and I'll rotate my socks, because if I'm not getting the water out of my shoes.
It's important. That's what I understand is you got to have. You really have to take good care of your feet.
Oh yeah.
Trail.
Yep.
Now I do two pairs of socks. I do a liner and then my wool sock.
Right.
And I've never had blisters.
You're very fortunate, knock on wood.
Exactly.
Now, just a kind of a magic wand question here. If it was at all possible, would you go hike the full trail today? Let's just say that you didn't have to worry about a job. You didn't have to worry about anything else. You were unencumbered by all those things. Would you go do that? Would you hike the trail? Would you be a through hiker?
I would love to do it, but like with George, my husband's very special to me, and I don't want to be gone that long.
Yeah. Oh, sure. Okay, yeah. It's not so much the niceties of the stove and all that kind of stuff, but the loved ones. Isn't that interesting?
Loved ones. Let's do the magic wand scenario where your spouse is at your stops, and you get to hang out for periods of time.
Or going with you. That would be the ultimate.
Not for me. No. I know that's not going to work.
Mine's not going.
She knows that's not going to work.
That would be awesome.
That's a quick way to find myself in a court of law at the end of that trip. No, I'm out on that one.
That truly tickled me. Yeah, I hear you. So a little bit of difference, there, the spouse on the trail. What was one of the most? That's good stuff. What was one of the most? Dr. Place talked about coming up on the mountain lake that you're not expecting. Mm-hmm. Or coming up on the herd of elk. And what's been that aha moment for you? Have you had one of those where you came up and you said, wow, and it's either with a group or it's with yourself that you just said, this is the right place, this is the right thing?
I guess I've had not just one thing. I was out on the trail during the eclipse.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
That was really incredible. Wow. But like I said too,
you were in an area where it was almost total, right?
Franklin, yeah.
Okay, Franklin, that is total. You were total eclipse.
So was everybody else. We got off of the trail at 4 that afternoon, and due to everybody else being over there, I didn't get home till 4 in the morning. Right. So, yeah. But that was a great experience.
So you were on the trail?
Yes.
Wow, very cool.
Exactly. And then I've also Mount Rogers with the wild ponies, the steers. Oh, sure. Seeing that's very incredible. So I guess the views you see, there's always something special, I think, about, and once again, the people that you meet. But
how about were you ever frightened or scared? I mean, to the point that you were like, wow, this is maybe not a good idea. Did you have any? Because, I told you during the break, because, you used to have to wear bells on your pack in Virginia because a bear or bears. Anything that you said, wow, or maybe a slip or maybe a fall or a challenge medically that you thought, oh, my goodness, what have I done?
I've never felt like that. I never really carried anything with me until the thru hiker was killed this past year.
Right.
But I did have a fall one time, and but luckily, like I said, the ladies were with me, so I got up, and I got a huge shiner on this side. So the closest I've come to a trail name is Knothead, and my husband really likes that name, so that might be sticking. But
wow. So that had to be scary, right? A fall on the trail.
Right, but I still, it was a mile into the trail, and I still had 30 more miles to go and did it.
So you got up and go.
So, yeah, you just get up and go.
Now, Dr. Place, you've had actual bear experiences on the trail.
Yeah, like I say, here east of the Mississippi, it's all black bears. And for the most part, like I say, they're scaredy cats. So, the deal with black bears is to spook them off. And show them who's boss and get your poles up high and scream at them or throw rocks at them. And on that super rare occasion, they would actually charge you.
You actually had that super rare occasion, did you not?
They didn't charge. The bear did not.
When it starts with
The bear did not charge me, but the bear was not backing away. The bear continued to move down the trail towards me as I was hollering at it, but it was lumbering. It wasn't being aggressive at all. It was just not scared of me.
Hey, I'm Jay Brown. I'm a realtor, an entrepreneur, and a family man. I love Hickory. I'm a big J.R.R. Tolkien fan, and in Lord of the Rings, they always go back to the Shire. For me, this is like the Shire. This is home. Not only is it home, but it's green, it's blue skies, it's water, it's life, it's families. It's pretty much the storybook setting for a really good life. Catawba County is all about making living better. Learn more about My Catawba County at makinglivingbetter.com.
When we left the program last, Dr. George Place was on the trail with a bear who was not having any of his poles in the air or hollering at him, but was lumbering toward him.
Yeah, right.
And just so we know the end of the story, you're okay, the bear's okay, obviously, so everything's fine.
Yeah. As the bear approached, it finally just kind of veered off trail. But definitely getting to a place of me thinking, what do I do now? Because you definitely don't want to run from a black bear. Black bears are hunters. And so if you run, it puts an instinct in the bear to chase you.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You back away. If the bear continues or charges you or attacks you, you fight it.
Really?
You fight tooth and nail with that bear. It is not like grizzly bears where you play dead. Grizzly bears, you do not fight. You will lose. Black bears, you have a great chance of it giving up.
Wow. Okay. Now, this is...
a chance.
I was going to say, the opinions expressed by the hikers on the Appalachian Trail are those of the hikers and not of the radio station, because I don't want somebody coming back and say, I heard on your program I was supposed to fight the black bear. And
now don't pick a fight. Don't get me wrong now, listeners. Right. Don't pick a fight with a black bear. But, yes, if you are attacked by a black bear, you definitely fight back.
Well, I always like to, at the end of the show, I always like to take the time to find out what our guests like to say that we haven't covered, because there's so many questions and so much we could talk about. But I did talk about inviting folks out on the trail. And Dr. Place, obviously, I hear about your experiences, and Ms. Ray, I hear about your experience as well. And I think this would be great.
Yes.
But I don't want to be that character in the Bill Bryson book. I don't want to be
cats.
Yeah, I don't want to be that guy who goes out, smoking and drinking, and that takes some prep. But also, you can do it. This is one of the things that you can do, right, Dr. Place?
Anybody can do this. This is, think about the free value. This is great entertainment and healthy activity for the whole family. Look, I invite folks to come out to our county parks. Riverbend Park, Baker's Mountain. These are amazing county parks. We've got another one going in the Mountain Creek area. We are really blessed in this community with amazing county parks. And soon there's going to be camping options at Riverbend. We're excited about that. And by the way, Extension, I always have to do a plug. If you want to get your kids involved, we have 4-H clubs that are hiking clubs like the Trailblazers. And every summer we do Science of Survival classes. So we teach kids
Science of Survival.
Science of Survival. Yep, we'll get out in the park and we do some really fun activities and pass on skills to kids that make them more resilient and they can handle themselves if something goes wrong in the wilderness.
If something goes wrong in the wilderness, that's fantastic because that is so very important if you're going to head out and if you're going to start doing that. Ms. Ray, you'd like to invite people out to the trail as well because this is something you found a little bit later in life. Mm-hmm. You're doing section hikes. It is not a week or 10 days for you oftentimes. You're going out and you're doing the trail little by little and enjoying it every step of the way, right? So what would you tell people who are thinking about this?
I'd echo George. It's doable. It may be a little difficult at first just till you get used to it and do, but there are also meetup groups.
Yeah, you want to talk about that, right?
Right. I've fortunate to have gone with 2 meetup groups to do sections. So you've got other people with the same interest. They're learning too, believe me. When I've gone out with them, there are people that are learning along with you. And then there's also the White Blaze that you can join in conversations with people that are wanting to do a section or wanting to do a certain area. They're looking for other people. So I've met a lady that I'm still hiking with now through the White Blaze. I also
That's what whiteblaze.com or something like that, or when you say the White Blaze, what is it, online?
Right. Yes, it's online. But I also met a lady I hiked with, and she had eaten cake and stuff the day before we started hiking, so she threw up our whole hike. So you can have both.
Yeah, you got both kinds out there, right?
One I'm still hiking with, and the other one only lasted one trip.
Not so much, right?
Have your cake and puke it too.
There's something that you got to be prepared.
Yes.
You have to learn a little bit about this before you go out and actually try to do a hike. But like Dr. Place was talking about, get out and start walking. I mean, that's really what it is. Get out your tennis shoes, get out a good pair of shoes and a good pair of socks, and go for a walk. And if you start to enjoy it and really wanted to do this, you can make it happen. Are you going to do the whole Appalachian Trail?
That is my goal.
Okay.
I have the first lady I hiked with on my initial trip. She had a goal of 200 miles a year.
Okay.
And I thought that sounds doable. So that's what I've tried to do. And this is my 4th year, and I'm doing a hike in November, about 43 miles, and that'll put me close to 800. So I'm on schedule. Some years I have not because I've lost a hiking partner or something like that, and I've tried to make it up.
So
10-year plan, 200 plus or minus miles.
So now where will this be in November? I'm thinking Georgia. You're not going up to Maine. You're not going...
No, there's a small section, North Carolina, Tennessee, that, like I said, I was hiking with whoever I could hike with. So if they were doing this section, I did it.
Right.
So that leaves that gap, and there's also a small gap around Fontana, and that'll connect me up to where I am in Virginia.
Okay.
So hopefully getting those done.
Do you have a favorite place so far that you just have loved?
Well, probably the last place you always hike seems to be. But I did do a section in Virginia where you got great views, you had waterfalls. There was a hostel there during the through hike season. They do yoga there. You're encouraged to help, clean up, prepare a meal. It was just a very nice experience.
Right.
So,
and that was in Virginia.
That was in Virginia.
Of course, I had to mention that. But growing up there was very nice because, like you said, you got shelters, you got hostels. I'm sure it happens all along the trail. But a buddy of mine one time told me about the Knife's Edge in Mount Katahdin and finishing the trail. And this is for I don't know if everybody's familiar with this, but it goes up to a point. And actually, when you're walking at the end of the Appalachian Trail, from what I understand, I don't know, I've never been there, but it is only a couple yards wide. Basically, it's the top of a mountain, and you were looking literally down on each side. And as he started to go across what they call the Knife's Edge, a storm came up. And he said literally he was straddled across the top of the mountain as the thunderstorm rolled across him. But he made it to the end of the Appalachian Trail. So something else to see and something else to do. And I hear that story, I get cold chills. Yeah. But, I mean, that's how quick the storms and what can happen. So where do you start in Georgia? Springer, Georgia, to Mount Katahdin, Maine, right? So that's the Appalachian Trail. You can do it. You can be a section hiker. You can be a through hiker, or you can just simply get out and walk and find that time out in the woods and just breathe in the air and those positive things that happen for you, find that center, be in the moment. I want to thank both of you very much for joining us this morning and helping us with Trails from the Tail. Tales from the Trail. I knew I'd get it right. There we go. Tales from the Trail. Lori Wray, Senior Real Estate Appraiser with Catawba County Tax Office. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
And, of course, Dr. George Place, Cooperative Extension, Catawba County Cooperative Extension.
The Making Living Better podcast is produced monthly in partnership with WHKY, Catawba County's source for first-person storytelling. Find us on makinglivingbetter.com, on Podbean, or wherever you download your podcasts.